you start off as a kid and go into your career, maybe change your career, and success doesn't just happen overnight. So it's the same with horses. You're not always going to get the outcome you want overnight.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to Reinforce the Horse. Today we are here with Curry Eversole, and Curry is a military veteran and the current director and president of Triple R Horse Rescue in Cave Creek, Arizona, where he lives his love and passion for horses and rehabilitation. Curry, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Good. It's so wonderful to have you.
It's been a good day.
Yeah, it's really great to have you here. And man, I feel like we have a lot that we are going to be able to just dive into. Alyssa gave a little introduction. Go ahead and just tell us a little bit more about yourself and ultimately how you got into horses, and then we'll just unpack it from there.
So I'm from Arizona. I grew up around horses, been around them all my life. And then I was in the military and retired. And even during my stint in the military, I was around horses and not around horses, and it depends on where you're at and what you're doing. And then I got out of the military and obviously went back to horses. It's kind of just always been my thing. I love them. But I didn't realize until after I got out of the military how great horses were and what they actually do for you versus when I was younger. I don't think I was totally connected with that as I am now.
So what branch of the military did you serve in? And since this is a worldwide podcast, what country?
So I served in the Army. I've been all over the world, many countries, Thailand, Japan, Korea, Germany, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Qatar, Dubai, many places all over. Your career takes you different places depending on what you do. I was a combat guy and I enjoyed it and I loved it, and I would do it all again without question any day of the week. The relationships you build and the friendships, they're lifetime. They're forever.
I definitely, I know some of our listeners know that I'm a military veteran, of course, not with a tenure like yours. I served about 7 years, but yeah, it's like once a veteran, always a veteran. And it just, as you were coming on screen, it's just like we naturally just have that connection. Even if it's from a different branch of service and different lifestyle altogether. So you said you grew up with horses. Can you tell us more about that? Like, were you on like a cattle ranch in Arizona, or was it what type of work did you do as a child?
What do you do as a kid? Chores. That's what I did a lot as a kid. There was horses everywhere, all over. I grew up with them. Parts of my family have always had horses, parts haven't. Some of my family is truly city people, very different lifestyle. And then I rodeoed. I started at a young age in rodeo, riding bulls, and tried saddle broncs, and I just had a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the lifestyle, the people. It's kind of like this, you have those fire pits at nighttime with a bunch of people your age and elders, and you get a lot of knowledge and growth, and it comes down to what you receive and what you don't, and what you use and what you don't. So it's very interesting in that way of life. I remember thinking back to like some of the elders I was around. You ask them how to do something, and they tell you a story, kind of the country way. And then you had to figure out in that story what the answer was. So it definitely kept you thinking, and it was a great way to grow up. And then in my career, the military, obviously it's not so easy to have horses all the time. But they're everywhere, so it's kind of nice. You can always be involved no matter where you go. Even Iraq, Afghanistan, there's donkeys. It's an equine. You can still play with them. So there's that process of it. And just a good time. You learn a lot, and every person you're around, trainer, older, younger, it doesn't matter. Somebody can teach you something about horses because we all look at it a different way and view it a different way. And so I've learned a ton throughout my life with horses. And then other jobs, let's see. I welded, I framed, a lot of little jobs off and on. Yeah.
When did you start Triple R, and where does that name come from?
So Triple R Horse Rescue started back in the early 2000s by a lady named Joey Ogborn and her husband Greg, and I still know them and talk to them. They live in Colorado. And it was called the Love Shack Ranch Rescue. So Love, L-U-V. And then this guy, Ken Bacher, ended up taking it over quite a few years later in a bad way. So let's just say, it's a board, right? So you can vote people in, vote people out. And he kind of built a board behind the scenes, or however he did it, and kind of got Joey out, which was a negative vibe for the rescue for a while. And then he switched the name to Triple R Horse Rescue, which means rescue, rehabilitate, rehome. And then I was back from the military, and they had these wild mini donkeys, 14 of them that came in. And one of my specialties has always been working and training wild horses and troubled horses. It's just something that I became good at, and I enjoy. I like watching the change. And so I went to the rescue, and I was working with the mini donkeys, and a backstory that I don't hide. I'm very open about it. I knew someone who had just donated quite a bit of money to the rescue, but the rescue was subpar feed, subpar care, and it really caught my attention. So I dug in deep to the taxes and things like that, and found out that he was embezzling money and putting horses down for no reason and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I spoke with the vice president, who is still currently my vice president, and told her, listen, this is what I found. This is the problem. I can prove every bit of it. So they voted him out. I agreed to come in for a year, help get the rescue back on its feet, which was 9 years ago, 2016, so 8 years ago. So much for a year, right? So I came into the rescue, and we voted him out and pressed charges with the DA. It was very personal to me. I believe do the right thing. Animals are very, regardless of the animal, they can't feed themselves, they can't take care of themselves. It is our responsibility, and it wasn't done. So I stepped in, and I've had the rescue ever since, and it's been a blessing and frustration at times, right? So just like anything else in life, but trial and error, and you go forward. I've never hid what happened. I've always been very honest about it. We actually have a finance company that runs our finances now, so there's nobody going to be embezzling money. And then myself and the board members all donate money every year, and we pay the finance company, and we pay the rescue insurance, so it doesn't come out of the nonprofit. So there's that. And today we have 5 board members, 41 volunteers who feed and take care of the horses every morning and night, and groom the horses and all that fun stuff. And everything's positive now. So it was a really positive situation that became a negative situation, that we turned it around and made it positive again. And it has a good name for itself. And, I'm the guy in the rescue world that if you have a horse rescue and I know about it and I know it's not legit, I'll find a way to close you. So I'm very well known for that, and I'm okay with that. I'll live with it. I just believe do the right thing because they rely on it.
Seems like that military ethos coming out, definitely, and which is an interesting thing. Like, when did you serve? What years?
from 1996 all the way to 2000, like final out. So when I got out, I had a lot of leave. I actually was out for like 7 months before I was actually out, which was really nice. So it was like 2000.
Yeah, so you get all this
13,
time in the
14, something like
military,
that.
just like being mission oriented, and especially in the combat world, and then definitely coming out and transitioning into an organization like that, and being able to kind of smell the negativity going on in an organization, and being able to restructure that is definitely some training that you got from good old Uncle Sam for sure.
Definitely. And it's great, even with the volunteers, you get people that volunteer, and they're there for a reason. And having lots of soldiers in my career, you learn to read people pretty quickly. And it's weird because we're talking about a horse rescue that, and we'll get more into it, I'm sure, that it's way more than a horse rescue. We rescue horses and people all at the same time. I don't know how to explain it, but I've watched people go from being completely afraid of a horse to they own horses now and go sorting. And it's pretty crazy. So it's just a matter of being able to acknowledge the presence around you, I guess. And that is something that truly gets taught in the military. Like, makes you very aware of that.
For sure. There's so much wrapped in horses and their magical sort of healing power that comes with helping them heal, and then they come right along with us and help us heal. I'm curious, when was your first encounter with a wild horse or burro?
Oh boy. I was probably 16, 17. So 30 some years ago. And they just weren't able to catch it, and they said it was wild, and I was like, I'll catch it, I think it started off as a young, cocky kid, but it was quickly humbled, and I caught the horse. So I think that's when, like, my love for that type of horse truly came out, was, getting something to trust you is impressive. Something that knows nothing about you, right? So, and I always explain it to people, like, we walk up to horses all day long, get on crutches or a wheelchair and try to go towards the same horse. It's not always the same reaction. So, it's very different. And I remember one time I had a cast on my arm, and my horse freaked out and didn't want me to come near it. So, it's just it's the simplicity of what they see versus what we see.
And they're so tuned into energy and stuff too. So
Right.
when you caught this horse for the first time, was this horse a mare or a gelding?
Gelding.
Okay. Did you and him share, like, continually grow on your connection and relationship as time went on?
No, I spent like 3 hours with them and got them loaded in a trailer, and that was it.
Okay.
Never saw them again. So it was a friend's horse that they had that they were getting rid of, and they just didn't know how to get it in the trailer. And I mean, obviously we could have ran it in the trailer like cattle, right? You can set up chute pens like they do at the prisons through the Mustang program and just run them in the trailer. But a horse doesn't learn nothing from that. So if you just take a little bit of time, I pick up horses all the time from people, and they tell me my horse doesn't load in a trailer very well. And the first thing I tell them is, well, cool, if you'll just stand over there, I'll take the horse. And 98% of the time they walk right in the trailer with me.
So I'm really curious, what is your technique with trailer loading? Because this is one thing that has continuously come up with me and my 3 horses, primarily the 2 wild mares, that, as you are aware, they have so much trailer trauma just by virtue of being rounded up and, all that other stuff. But what is your technique? What's the secret?
Do you know what I tell a lot of people, and it goes back to what you said about the energy, is that I spent a lot of time in a war zone in, getting shot at and bombs going off and stuff like that. And I'm just super calm. Like, a horse can rear up while I'm holding it, and I don't jump, I don't flinch, I'm just really, really calm. Like, it's weird. And I wear a watch that tells me my heartbeat, and there's times where, like, I look down at my watch and the horse just reared up and totally lost its mind, and my heartbeat's like 68 heartbeats a minute. Like, it's super calm. Like, so I really think, go back to your energy, like who you are as a person. I always stay calm because I know that no matter what, that horse relies on me. And I really think that, and I don't overthink, So, I think another easy way to think about it, and I explain this to a lot of like younger kids, is that your parents tell you to do something that you don't really want to do, and they constantly tell you to do it because you keep ignoring it until you get in trouble or you do it, right? But then think about it like a horse. A horse doesn't necessarily want to go into that trailer. So, and all trailers are different. Horses are naturally, they say, claustrophobic. And we want to put this animal into a small, confined area. Sometimes going towards that trailer, standing at the back of the trailer and trying to pull on the horse and things like that, it creates a negative mindset for the horse, and you go from that flight to that fight mode of their mentality. But if you just take the horse, and you walk it towards the trailer, but 10 feet before you get to the trailer, you make a left or a right, and you do a circle. And you just keep working the feet to the distance to the trailer until you can feel that horse relax. And, horses talk to you. I don't know how to necessarily explain that, but they do. And being able to read that and see that in a horse is super important. And it's actually really simple. We always go back to like the ear position and things like that, but licking the lips, the breathing, the body shaking, the intensity of them, pushing you away from the trailer or pulling from you, versus if you just kind of always keep it in that simple motion of it's a positive thing going towards the trailer. And then a lot of times, boom, you get to the back of the trailer and the horse smells the trailer and takes a couple steps backwards. Well, you went from a positive smell to the trailer to a negative. Just go for a walk again. Take their mindset away from that trailer. And then eventually you come back and, who knows, you're right up in the trailer. And then I always tell people, the first time you haul a horse that you don't know, I run a stock trailer for a reason. I don't tie them up. I just shut the gates and give them their space and let them be able to freely move around where they can't get hurt. Obviously, you got to drive a little bit slower and turn a little bit slower because you got this kind of loose standing horse, but realistically, it's not any different than they're tied up. They're still loose standing. So that's pretty much it for me. I just always think about, what am I doing that would make me nervous that's making the horse nervous? Does that help answer your question?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that is very.
Kind of
I understand what you're saying, and I think that it's still coming into this sort of being able to, or rather trusting in my ability to listen to them, because we've had plenty of moments here with our three that they certainly do talk, and they're very, very easy to understand with so many things. I mean, from training the halter to training picking up the feet, and I mean riding, and there's just so much wrapped in listening to them. It's fascinating.
Right. It's like, just I don't know how to explain it. Just stay calm. Just stay calm, pay attention and listen, and watch their demeanor, how they move, how they feel, the tension that you feel on your lead rope. Are you giving them space, or are you creating tension because your lead rope's too tight and you're pulling more than you should be? So all those little things you just think about, and at the same time, trying to build that relationship where they know you're not going to harm them, and they know that you're there with the best interest, and so they trust that, and then they follow, right? So
I'm curious, Curry, about your military experience and the combat experience, especially, and saying, that you being around horses, you actually can monitor your heartbeat and you've got a really low heartbeat and stuff like that. I know just by virtue, like I didn't have a combat role in the military, but I've been to Iraq and, been in that environment. And I think it's been talked about just by virtue of going through basic military training of any sort, you kind of become a different person, and your nervous system is stimulated such. And so I wonder, like, have the horses been a catalyst for you to uh, kind of calm that post military service, or um, did you have other ways that kind of brought down that stress and anxiety in your life?
that's a good one. So, yeah, when I got out, I thought I was okay. I have no shame in saying I wasn't. And so I went to counseling on my own. So 3-4 days a week, 2 hours a day. I wanted to be a better person. I don't want to be a negative part of anybody's life or society per se. And I'm not saying not to go to counseling. That's a huge part of me being who I am. But nothing in my life has made me calmer than being around a horse. Like, it's I've had it happen so many times where, like, you just kind of have a bad day or you're uncomfortable or upset or whatever, and you walk up to a horse that barely even knows you, like for me at the rescue, and they just, like, lean over and put their head on your chest. Like, they know. I don't know how to explain it to people, but they know. Or, and that's been a huge part of my life. Horses they're my grounding, they're my sanity, they're my everything. Like, I could go into depth on that so deep, but we won't go into all that detail. But
Well,
they're a huge part, and I've watched it change my life.
please
I've watched it
do.
change
I mean,
others.
share some detail with us, because I mean that's what we're all about here, and if you're open to it, I mean, and to kind of lead into that, I know a lot of our listeners have heard our story, and this is your story, but I mean, like, my life was completely turned upside down and inside out because of horses. They I was actually accused by my ex-wife at one point of getting a horse for Alyssa so that I could keep her here against her will. and the actual real funny thing about that is that whether Alyssa enjoyed horses or not, they became such an integral part of my life. I found myself one night uh, bawling my eyes out, next to our Bashkir curly named Cody, and he cried. He was bawling his eyes out right alongside of me, and I came to, or woke up, whatever you want to call it, about 45 minutes to an hour later, and I've not been the same since. And so that created this ripple effect and a grand spiritual awakening for me, and a lot of other things. So yeah, if you could share more detail, that'd be fantastic.
So the downside to war is you lose a lot of friends. You see a lot of things that not even nurses in a hospital could imagine seeing, and nurses see it a lot. And it's not to say they see less. Who knows? I've never worked in a hospital. It's just my only comparison. But death is it's everywhere. Whether it's people you know or people you don't, it's all over there. And so you come home, and I've learned to, like, I don't watch war movies. Not a big 4th of July fan. just there's a lot of triggering sounds that they don't work for me. I don't like big crowds. I don't like to have my back exposed. Lots of things like that. So when you get in those moments of like an uncomfortable state, where just something could have triggered, where you don't feel like you're yourself, you can go and spend time with that horse or horses. And I don't know, you get this calming, it's like they're your brother in the military, your comrade, and they got your back, and they know how to just kind of recenter yourself. I mean, it's a weird thing. So dreams, my wife loves to go to like concerts and major crowded places, and so for me, I go because I will absolutely support my wife always. But I look forward to coming back and just go spend time with the horses because I'm really uncomfortable inside, So I'm really good at not showing it. I'm really good at hiding it, and I don't bottle it up, but I know how to keep it pent up until I can go and get myself that release of like, okay, I can calm down now. Like everything's okay. And, we live in a world where population goes up day by day beyond numbers we ever imagined, 30, 40 years ago when I was a kid, where, Maricopa was small. And now there's, I don't know, probably 5+ million people in Maricopa, which is crazy to think that. So it's just different. It's, I don't know how to explain it, except they keep me very well balanced, And then I think there's the other side of it for me too, is that, I have some volunteers that they've opened up, and I know that they've gone through some trauma in their life, and so I explain what works for me, what makes me feel comfortable, and things like that, and I know it works because I watch them kind of pick up the same routines and spend time with the horses, and I watch them grow and become stronger and, more in control of their emotions, and, because PTSD is not just war, it's you lose a family member, you get in a car wreck, you get divorced, like there's a million things that can create PTSD. It's just now it's more of an awareness to people versus, nobody really listened, right? And so I always tell people, are there people that use PTSD for a crutch? Absolutely. There's always good and bad in everything, and that is what it is. But I don't never assume somebody does. I just tell them what I do, what makes me feel better. And again, it always goes back to the horses. My wife always says, yeah, I would go before Curry's horses, which isn't true, but it'd be a deep thought.
Yeah.
So I'm just kidding.
So,
right?
Can you tell us more about what you do with and about the horses when you're trying to find that place of peace? Is it just hanging out with them, or is there a number of different things that you do to integrate yourself with the horse?
I think what I've learned, I was talking about this recently, I've probably learned over the last 5-6 years, is that I don't know who needs who more. Because a lot of times it's the horses that seem to need the connection more that give me the better grounding, centering of myself. But at the same time, I think I'm giving it to them too. So it's weird. It's a give and take. But it's simple. I can go halter a horse and take it for a walk, and that keeps me like calm. And I can just walk over and pet a horse. And, I'm the weird guy on a ranch that stands and talks to horses. And that's just who I am, and I'm fine with that. And I have full-on conversations with them. And they listen, which is great. But they talk back. It's different. It's more emotional and physical connection that you get with a horse versus they're not like me and you having a conversation where we can say exactly what we want to say or hear versus they don't get that opportunity. So I necessarily don't really ride them when I'm not if I'm not happy. So I feel like I don't want to climb on a horse's back when I have like a negative feeling in my body. You know what I mean? I don't want to pass that on to the horse. But walking them typically is my go-to. And sometimes it's funny. I'll just go out and walk around the pen without a halt or anything, and 2-3 horses will just follow. Like they know that you need them. And it's really cool. It's a very cool experience. And it teaches you a lot if you pay attention and listen. You can see some, you can see their body language, but you can never hear them in a way, right? So you can and you can't, but you don't hear them like we hear voice. You hear them by, their breathing or licking their lips or, whatever they do, or their moment of, all right, I'm done with you, and they run away. Because that happens, right? They're like, all right, I'm out of here, see ya. So, but yeah, that's probably my go-to is I just go and walk around them and be around them and pet them and groom them, and they enjoy it as much as I do, except I don't think they realize how much I enjoy it.
I love it. It's absolutely like speaking to my soul. It's what I came into horses thinking that they were pretty much like an ATV, like and sadly that's how I treated them at first. I mean, I didn't know any better and just kind of what we were taught, and that's really just kind of how it happened. But then we lost a mare within about less than 2 years of having her. She wound up fracturing her pelvis, and we euthanized her at that point. And it was just such a huge transformation, or the beginning of the transformation for me, and like knowing that there was a better way to handle things, and then just getting into myself, going inward. And now I don't even really ride. We've taught our horses that like they can tell us when they want us to get on or not, and my horse never wants me to. So I just respect that. I'm like, can I ride? And he's like, no, not right now. I was like, okay, I don't have work to do or a ranch to run on a horse or something like that. So it's developed in just like this really cool relationship.
I definitely think you get more from a horse on the ground than you do in the saddle. Definitely.
I agree, and I've learned so much. My Mustangs have taught me more about that than I think any horse I've been around. And I've been around some horses when I was a little kid, but not very much. Like these 3, 4, if we're counting Mocha, were like our first go with horses, our first like real experiences. So how many horses do you have on the rescue at the moment?
So currently we have 5.
Okay.
And I will explain, because some people are going to hear that, and I get it all the time, where they go, well, how many horses can you have? I mean, we could house 20 horses if we wanted. But I have this rule that my funding is how many horses I house. So I think that in your bank account you should have $2,500 or so per horse on the property. For medical costs and if things go wrong and stuff like that. Does our funding always stay where we want it? No. It happens. I don't feed cheap feed. I don't feed cheap supplements. I 100% give them full care that I would want to be given, and I believe in that. But we do so much more than just that. We have tons of people that want horses that we have like an Excel spreadsheet that says kind of like what they're looking for and what they're not. So, like if I went through, I wrote it down, so I figured you would ask. So like if we look at last year, 2023, we had an average of 32 to 53 volunteers at any given time. We rescued 5 horses into rehabilitation. We rehomed 17 horses that did not need rehabilitation. We assisted in rehoming, which basically means somebody calls me and says that due to financial, divorce, whatever their personal reasons are, they need to rehome their horses, and then I go and visit the horses and get an understanding of the horses and their capabilities and likes and dislikes and things like that, and then I go through our spreadsheet and find them a place. So that necessarily, they don't come to our facility. I'll be the one that picks them up and hauls them, and but I go through the process of knowing where they're going, and people have been vetted out, and we have a very strict adoption policy. And then horses rehomed last year from rehabilitation was only one. And she's a pretty particular horse, but she, got rehabilitated and did well, and she now has a great home. And so there's a lot of, you go to a lot of these rescues, and they have 30 horses, 40 horses, 20 horses, right? And my thing is when you have that many horses, there's, as a horse person, and you could be right and I could be wrong, I don't know, but in my mind, there is no way that all those horses are getting 100% of their affection and 100% of their needs when you have that many horses. It's a lot when you think about vet care and things like that. So I keep it to where all the horses get 100% care and love and attention and training, and there's so many factors into all that, right? So
I honor and respect that so much. That speaks to my soul in so many ways, and I know there's so many people that have this like innate desire. Oh, there's so many that need homes. There's so many that need to be rescued, but there is something to say about rescuing a horse that needs a home but won't get the attention they need, and rescuing a horse where it's going to go and live a life that it needs to before being brought to his or her forever home. I really respect that.
And I agree. I think there's a big difference between rescuing a horse and just taking horses in. There's a huge difference in that. And I take in some pretty challenging horses. I mean, I have two right now that they challenged me for sure. I mean,
what are their stories?
So one is a 9-year-old Arab mare, and her owner passed away. And she came with another horse that was a quarter horse that's like 35, 36 when we euthanized them. And yes, rescues have to euthanize horses sometimes, unfortunately. We have a great vet, and she, always backs up what we do, and it's totally down to multiple people's decisions. Not one person says, hey, I'm going to do this. It doesn't work like that. That's what was happening in the past with the previous guy that was running the rescue. And we have bylaws written that will never happen again. So they came in together. She pretty much had no handling or anything. And when I picked her up, the lady that was overseeing them said that she couldn't be touched. And so, and the old man also couldn't be touched. So in 5 minutes, I caught her and put a halter on her and walked her in the trailer, which was crazy. And she was pretty good, but she was very scared, shaking, would freeze up in her stance. And then the old man, we ended up shooting in like cattle because there was no way we were touching him without him hurting himself. And so I took him to the rescue. And we unloaded. I backed the trailer up straight to the stall and unloaded him. And then I put the halter back on her and walked her to a different stall right next to him and kept them side by side because they know each other and that's their comfort, but not in the same stall together. And we we had him for probably 7 months, 8 months, and they were super skinny. Like, I mean, it was disgusting to look at them. They were very neglected and long feet, and so we were never able to halter him or anything, but he got to a point where he would let us pet him and, you know, put medicine on his sores, and he ate really good food and gained a lot of weight and lived until there was just no way we could help him anymore. And so then we put him down, and we thought that that was going to be traumatizing for her, but she really didn't care, which was weird because you always get different responses in horses. And I don't want to say like she didn't care because I'm not in her head. I don't personally know, but her reaction and mannerisms after he was euthanized didn't show any like big deal to her. But she's gone from, I mean, she would bite, she would run at you. She like had quite a bit of pent up leave me alone aggression, not really hurt you, but like harshly warn you. To like, I have a fly mask on her, I put a halter on her, we do her feet. She's had her shots, and she's up for adoption, but obviously needs a lot of training. And as her training goes on, her adoption fee goes up. Our max adoption fee is $1,500. We don't do this to make money off the horses. We do events and other things that make money for us, and we have people that donate money and stuff like that, but we don't make money off the horses because it's just not why we're rescuing horses, is to make money off of them. We rescue them to give them better homes and a better life and more comfort and trust and stuff like that.
Another thing that
so
totally resonates with me.
So that's her. And then the other horse is Bailey. Bailey came out of Texas, went to California. Long story, a friend of mine, she's a great friend and I'm very close with her, and she went to California, brought this horse back from California, and had her at her house for a little while, and then I went and picked her up. And obviously she's been ridden before. I mean, you can put a saddle on her and stuff. I've never tried to get on her. She does not turn out well with other horses at all. So she's gotten a lot better through fence association, so basically stalls and things like that, right? Runs. But if I turn her out with the group, no, it would be a fight for sure. She would fight. And she's a quarter horse. She's probably 12, 13. Really stocky, really big. Wasn't underweight. Just seriously has trust issues. So there's days where she's great. You can walk up, pet her, and she's fine. And there's days where she's like, yeah, don't come in here. Unless you're brushing her. I don't care when you brush her. That horse will follow you around like a kid in a candy store. Like, she will not leave you alone. She's like, brush me, brush me, brush me. And other than that, that's about the only time she always likes you. Otherwise, she's kind of like, yeah, leave me alone. I'm done with you. And so those two horses will challenge me for sure. They'll test my skill. They'll test my level. I have a lot of different trainers that I trust and talk to. And if I feel like I get into a bind, then I'll have them come out. For example, the Arab mare. I thought maybe she would do better. What I noticed with her, with the female volunteers, was that she definitely seems to have more of a trust with men than women. And it kind of threw me off a little bit. But I know that can happen. I've seen it happen. So I asked a female trainer that I know to come up and work with her a little bit. And she got way more negative reactions than I do. So you kind of start to pick up on those things a little bit. So it doesn't mean you take the female aspect away because you want them to build that trust. But you bring it in smaller interactions versus let's just force it and you're going to learn to like it. So that keeps her at a better comfort level. And she still doesn't like her mane brushed or touched, and it's all tangled, and it drives me absolutely crazy. But we're getting there. So that'll take time. So when you get these challenging horses, it's funny because some people want to, and you see, I get phone calls for it all the time. My daughter or my wife or my husband got this horse, and we just can't train this horse. It doesn't like, people or blah, blah, blah. But it really just boils down to, we live in a world where everybody wants to go fast, and they want to see transitions and what's the word? Success overnight. Success doesn't come overnight. It takes time to build success. You start off as a kid and go into your career, maybe change your career, and success doesn't just happen overnight. So it's the same with horses. You're not always going to get the outcome you want overnight. Sometimes you got to go really slow. And being able to read that and know that in a horse is so critical and important. Some horses come in and, within days they trust you and you can do anything with them and you can climb on them and ride them. And cool, that was a simple fix. But some horses take a lot more than that. And I'm pretty sure a lot of trainers you talk to would tell you that, some horses might take 6 months to train, some horses might take a year. So it just takes different time.
I've experienced that too, and it seems to me like a lot of the problems that we have with horses are more like a human construct of getting on a specific timeline and getting something done in a specific timeline. And we've experienced some of that. I mean, one of our Mustangs, Grace, she got bit by a rattlesnake last year, and I mean, at the time we couldn't put a halter on her or anything, and then the vet was kind of like, well, if you could put a halter on her, but she got bit on her nose, and it's like, you're not going to be able to do anything with the horse anyway. So there's like this slippery slope of what we try to like create this timeline that the horses, they don't care about our timelines ever,
No, they have all day, and all night, versus, we show up and I'm like, all right, I got 2 hours to work with this horse, right? So I work, I have my family, I help coach my son's wrestling, and then I have the horse rescue on top of all of that. And but I always find time, even if it means I get less sleep, I always find time. But, there's times I'll tell my wife, hey, I'm going to run to the rescue's not at my house, it's at another location. I don't think it necessarily looks good having a rescue at your house, because how do you completely legitimately split all the funding between what gets paid for your house and what gets paid for the rescue? And it's a non-profit, right? So it should be split. So I like that it's away from my house, and ours is kind of up in the mountains, and it's quiet and it's peaceful, and there's no street lights, and the only thing we have is a riding stable next door and a bunch of hikers that hike the mountains, and it's super nice and quiet. So I love that aspect of it. There's deer, bobcats, mountain lions, snakes, squirrels, rabbits, everything. But I'll tell my wife, hey, I'm going to run to the rescue, I'll be back. And then I come back at noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because I just get there and I start doing something. And, that's the other thing when you say do something. When you work with a horse, you never want to finish on a negative. You always want the last thing you do with the horse to be positive. So you start working with the horse and say, trying to get a fly mask on, right? If it's a consistent negative response for an hour and you only have an hour, do you just quit? Like, you can't, because your next fight is going to be 10 times harder. So you find a way to always keep it where it ends on a positive. That could mean in an hour, that could mean in 5 hours sometimes, if you ask my wife. But that's okay. I'm fine with that. And so I want their experience to be positive. And some, I let the volunteers brush the horses and spend time with the horses and stuff like that. But like with Misty, I had to cut the volunteers back and tell them, like, just go in, clean her stall, go out. If she comes up to you, pet her. If not, leave her alone. I think with her, there was so much interaction with her that she didn't know which way to go. Everybody walks up to her differently. Everybody pets her differently. Everybody's emotions are different. Everybody's energy is different. And I noticed that I was always going backwards and working with her. So I told the volunteers, like, let's just step away. Just let the trainers do what we have to do. And so my response now working with her is night and day positive, right? So sometimes you got to be able to have the ability to read everything that's going on around that horse, even when you're not there.
So that makes so much sense. And so I'm really curious, in the rescue type situation where you have horses that are coming and going at a probably pretty frequent basis, how do you gauge like the training, especially as far as it relates to medical? Like, say if you were to get a horse that's in a really negative medical state, maybe they need their hooves done, or they need some sort of medical care, but they can't put a halter on. How does the rescue go about taking care of this horse so they're getting the needs met, but also feeling like they are being taken care of and acknowledged for their choices and training, if you will?
So, not everything is perfect in the horse world. It's just not. And anybody that told you that they have this perfect condition way of handling rescue horses all the time, in my opinion, is lying. I mean, it's just, there's no way to say that that's how it is. So, most importantly, go to the professionals. Go to your veterinarians. Go to your farriers. Get answers. But with that said, let's say you can't handle a horse, and we've had that situation. There's simple things you can do, like you can oral sedate a horse, like using Demosidane gel, and you feed it to them with some supplements, and they get orally sedated. It takes about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. And then at that point, you can go in. Just because a horse is sedated doesn't mean you won't get a fight. They can still kick, bite, and fight. But a lot of times, that's all it takes. And then you don't necessarily always have to put a halter over their head. You could put, like, I have a really soft white rope that I'll put around the neck, and then I'll take the other end, the rope coming off the neck, and then bring it and wrap it around the nose to create a halter effect. So it's the same type of pull on the horse, but I never tried to walk up and slip it over the nose and put it over the ears on a horse that doesn't want to be touched. So there's multiple ways to do those types of things. And then there's the extreme ways where, if we get a horse that absolutely cannot be touched, we could get a chute method and get it in a chute where a vet can doctor it. And say you don't have the availability to get a chute, then you use a squeeze method, right? You get it between two panels that aren't going to move, put ropes, you squeeze the horse, so that if you have to do that for emergency medical treatment, you would be wrong not to. But you do it in a sense and in a way that you're not trying to create more harm to the horse. And I work with a really good vet. I love her. She's amazing. And she'll go the extra mile a lot to treat a horse. And she's always done that for us. And the same with my farrier. He's really calm and does a really good job. And he'll take some of the, I call it back talk from the horse, sometimes, so that he can get the job done, but he's calm about it, and he's very good with the horses. So that's about the only way to treat a horse that can't be handled, there's so many ways, especially as a veterinarian. They can come in and you can do a Demosidane gel, and then once the horse is calm, if they can get a needle in it, they can do other drugs to lay it down to where you can kind of, keep more control of it, and they can treat it that way.
I love that, the idea that there's no perfect situation. And that just goes back to your military experience. And it's like, when the mission has to get completed, it has to get completed, but let's evaluate and be strong for everybody involved, and making sure that we're not just cutting corners just to get to the end result. And I think, to me, that's what a lot kind of comes up. It's like this horse is untouchable, or we can't work with this horse, so let's just kind of, for lack of better terms, throw it away so that we can go get another one, so that we can, do whatever activity we're trying to get from the horse, rather than actually like developing the relationship with the horse. And that brings to mind, in like Warwick Schiller's book that we were talking with him about in the last episode, was his relationship before horsemanship idea. And I just love that. But people would look at my horsemanship and say, like, look, Jason, you've got a few pasture puffs on your property, and but I don't care anymore. Like I'm not like out to be some like even horse person. I just know what they've done in my life, and what I've done in theirs, and it's a win-win in that way.
It is. I refer to them as yard art or grocery getters, right? So lots of people have them, and I get anywhere between 5 to 10 phone calls, texts, or emails a week to take horses. And I will tell you, in a sad way, it has become more and more people just want to walk away from the horse. And I don't know if they're going to buy another one or not, but it's not what they thought they were going to get or what they wanted, right? So, my advice to people is before you buy a horse, right? So let's say you go buy a $2,000 horse. Spend the extra $1,000 or whatever it costs for a PPE from a vet, which is a pre-purchase exam. Make sure the horse is sound, because I hear it all the time. I bought this horse, it was sound. I get it home, and the next day it's lame. Well, unfortunately, somebody probably drugged it so that you couldn't see the lameness, and you bought the horse, and now you've got to get it fixed. But they don't. They want to get rid of it. And I always tell people, I'm not a sanctuary. I'm a rescue. My job is to bring horses in, rehabilitate them, and send them home, to a new home. During the COVID world, I don't really even like to refer to it like that, but it is what it is. We noticed that it was almost impossible not to kind of help take some older horses. So we have a couple horses that they'll live with us till they're done, I'm sure. One of them is the Mustang. I'm pretty sure he'll never get adopted out. I got him when he was 17, and he came to the rescue when he was 17. I was the first person to put hands on that horse and ever touch him, and got him halter broke and loading a trailer, and all that stuff. But he doesn't trust everybody at all, especially men. I think most men don't. He won't go near him, but he's good with me, and that's because I worked with him a lot, and actually took him to my house for a long period of time to work with him. And then the other horse, he's just an older, neglected paint horse that he's just probably, if he went out, he'd go out as a companion. And we're really strict about how our horses go out and what they go out as. But it changed a lot, the way the horse world versus like when I was younger versus today. People kept horses until they died when I was younger. It was like your kid. You never got rid of it. And now it's like, well, when I can't ride it and I have to feed it, I'm getting rid of it. You know what I mean? And so I've seen it change a lot over the years. And I don't necessarily know if it's for the worse or for the better. I don't know. I can't, break that down. I just know that they're not a cheap investment, So we just did this, I can grab this paper. We just did this thing last year. Hold on, give me a second. We just did this thing last year where, what's the average cost for one horse in Arizona? And this was interesting to me because the last time I did it was about 2 years before the whole COVID thing. And back then it was like $4,000 or $5,000 a year when I looked it up, versus they say in 2023 the average housing a year for a horse, if you board, is $4,904. Grain is $627. This is just based on like an average on a Google thing. And hay is, $1,800. Vet care is like $800. Farriers, that's just regular vet care, shots, no problems, right? Obviously, we know that it's a lot more if there's a problem. Farrier, $1,500, and then dentistry, $200. So when you break that down, that's almost $10,000 a year per horse. That's with boarding. You got to remember that. But if you take the boarding out, you're half of that. You're still $5,000 a year. But then there's the additional costs that you have to consider. And I wrote this down on the paper that said stall maintenance, water, feed troughs, manure removal, stall bedding, long-term medicines, shade, fly mask, spray, any additional items to the need of the horse, right? Because every horse is different. They're like humans. Some people can eat fish, other people are eggs, and other people are allergic to it. So horses are no different. They have their ins and outs. But every few years I like to look up and see, like, what are the going costs, what is it, and stuff like that. And I always share it on our Facebook and social media and website and stuff, because I can't reach everybody, but in hopes that people look at it and see it, they think about it before they try to purchase a horse, So one of your fence panels breaks, say you have portable fence panels. I remember buying them 10 years ago, and they were $80 a panel. Now they're $160, $170. The cost is significantly increased, and it's not going to go down.
Like anything, there's ways to, reduce or mitigate some of those costs. But yeah, it's definitely it's a big expense, even on the front end. Usually, to purchase a horse is expensive. I know that for sure. And I think a lot of people either get into it for a sport and they've been in that kind of arena for their life, or they're just new to it, or maybe like we did, we got into it because we were moving to 10 acres of land. And, I expected to die on this property, and sometimes the universe just shifts that way. But we're fortunate enough to be able to have the ability to kind of think of different ways to keep the horses together and that sort of thing. So, but I can see where people would get in a pinch, and, a horse is a lot more difficult to rehome and think about. And like when circumstances do change, it's a lot more difficult than say like a dog or a cat. But let's face it, we have problems with all of the above. Shelters are overflowing with these animals, and
they are, and it's crazy. Some of the things I get sometimes, like when you say we get these pets, people buy them for their kids, and then I had a person reach out that said, my daughter went to college and we no longer can take care of this horse. Well, then how did you take care of it before she went to college, right? So my son recently went to college, and now I have his parakeet bird that obviously it's not the same cost, but I'm not going to ditch the bird just because my son went to college, right? So I always based on my kids having horses by their interests. If they weren't fully interested, they're not getting a horse. That's an investment, not just financially, but physically. You got to go out and take care of it, and those types of things. The vet that I work for, when you talk about costs of horses, it's crazy. My vet who does my rescue, I actually worked for her for a couple years as her vet tech and a handler, because I am good with horses that have issues per se. And we would go do pre-purchase exams on horses that are $50,000, and I'm like, man, I remember being out at Westworld one time, and I watched an Arab baby horse that was barely halter broke go for like $1.1 million. And I was blown away by that. I was like, did they really just say that? But the horse world's so different. Like cutter horses, they're really expensive. Reining horses are expensive. Rope horses are expensive. All horses are expensive. And I just was talking to the vet the other day, and we were talking about how, people are selling lame horses with laminitis or, ring bone and stuff like that for $3,000-$4,000. And I'm like, that's insane. Like, I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. But it is what it is. And then there's people that, they got a $5,000-$10,000 horse, and they're like, "Oh, give it to a rescue. I can't ride it no more."
Yeah, there's this interesting, and Dad and I have brought it up a number of times where, so our first horse was, she was registered AQHA, and she was a pretty pricey mare. She did pretty much everything. She was our trail horse for a while. Like, I never got into sport with her, but she could have done it all. She had barrel experience. She had jumping experience. This mare could have done anything. After Mocha passed away, I got interested. I had been interested in Mustangs before then. And the Mustangs, coming from the TIP program, which is where my mare came from, it's $125. And she couldn't, she barely met her tip requirements. Upon coming home, she couldn't put a halter on. Now this mare, I ride her bareback and bridleless with no issues. She does tricks at Liberty with me. This horse is effectively more monetarily valuable than my first horse, just by virtue of her way of existing and her ability to perform. But I can't put a monetary value on Willow. There's just no I can't. That horse is my life.
It's always interesting to see. So one of the things I always say to people is, we're not born to drive a car. We're not born to, we lay on our back or get held, and then we crawl, and then we walk, and then we run, and then we sprint and climb and all that stuff, right? It's just something you learn along the way. And one of the things with horses you see is you got a horse that had minimal training and some difficulties, and you took the time to learn that horse and build a relationship and be able to do the things you want to do with that horse because you invested the time. One of the things I've always said with investment is you can buy a $20,000 horse that's totally rideable, go down any trail, do anything. But if you have no experience as a rider or what you're doing with the horse, you will make a good horse a bad horse. And then somebody will call me and want me to take that horse, right? It's not a bad horse. It's just you didn't take the time to teach yourself what that horse already knows. That horse has already been trained and taught. It knows cues, it knows leg pressures, it knows, all kinds of stuff, versus now you just bought a horse and you're going to jump on it and ride it because you think you know what you're doing. It doesn't work like that. So I think an untrained person can take a good horse and make it a bad horse. The same as a bad horse in your situation. A horse with minimal training can go to a person, but if you take the time to learn what you're doing and what you're getting into, then obviously it works out, right? It's like guns. Guns don't jump out of my safe and shoot anybody. You have to learn to handle guns and use guns. It's the same. A horse is no different. You got to learn how to ride. You got to learn how to work with that horse. You got to learn how to read the horse, understand the horse. You can take the most rideable horse in the world, and there's days it just doesn't want to be ridden. You get on it, and there's a lot of fuss, and is your ride that day that important?
Yep.
Or just
it's
put the
training,
horse away and do it again
training
tomorrow.
the person before the horse, I think, and it's so much about what's going on internally, and that ultimately comes out forward. And the horses just have a way of peering into the depths of our soul and knowing our energy and what's going on. And so, yeah, it's great. So for our audience, where can people find you? We'll definitely put links to all of your, Facebook and website and stuff. But if you want to give a shout out to your website, where can they find you?
So our website is rrhorserescue.com. It's the word triple, the letter R, horserescue.com. We're in Cave Creek, Arizona. It's a very nice place to be. It's quiet, unless it's tourist season, and then it's really busy. Other than that, it's great. You can find us on our website. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. We have a TikTok. We have, what is it called now? Twitter X or something. It all changes too much. We are everywhere, and most people know who we are, and those who don't, we welcome you, and we hope that you come out and visit us. We are very open. We don't take any specific type of horse. We have donkeys. We've had donkeys. We've had everything. Anything equine we'll take. So we don't, narrow it down
do
to
you
one
just
specific breed. So,
are you specifically focused on like the northern Arizona area, or do you take from just like whatever?
No, we obviously Bailey
right?
sheep. Yeah, anywhere we can get them. So we have horses that come from out of state. We only adopt in state. I'm very straight about that, and here's the reason why is. So if you want to, and I'll get into that so the listeners may understand. Any questions I don't answer, people can email me at Curry, CURY, at rrhorserescue.com. They can find it on our website. On our website, there's a ton of frequently asked questions that are already answered that'll help people. But if you came to us and wanted to adopt a horse, you would fill out an adoption application. And then we would then get in touch with you, and we would visit your property. So I do require that you have stalls. I do require that you have shade. I have requirements because, if a horse has a skin condition and doesn't need to be out in the sun because something happened, you need that shade cover, right? There's a lot of reasons why stalling is good. You can test, their poop and stuff like that for sand, and there's a lot, you can't do it in a turnout because you don't know whose is who unless you stand behind them until it drops, right? So we're really strict with our policy. If you're a first-time owner, I most likely will not adopt you. I think that you should come and volunteer at our rescue at least twice a month for a year and attend some clinics and things like that to learn about horses before you want to take one to your property. Horses don't lay down all day. So if your horse is laying down all day, something's wrong, right? So there's a lot of things people don't know that you have to learn before you own a horse. So that's why I'm really big about the first-time owner adoptions. And then if you adopt the horse and everything plays out and it works out, I'll deliver the horse to you. And the reason why I want to go and see your property is also I get to see your other horses. I get to see what they look like, what care they're in. How did they respond when you walked out to the pen? Did they run? Or did they come up to you? There's a lot of things that tell us when we go visit you, doing our assessment, that gives us a good insight to what type of horse person you are. And then after the horse is adopted, we will be in contact with you by phone or email at 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. And then we'll leave you alone until right before the 6 months, and then we will come visit you again right before the final 6-month adoption is complete so that we can check on the horse, make sure everything's okay. And when we've had horses go to Payson, and for us, that's a 2-hour drive, So, but we take the drive. We had a horse go way down south by where you guys are, which was about a 3-hour drive, 3.5-hour drive, and we go check on them. And so that's why we do the in-state only. We don't adopt out-of-state. We'll take horses from out-of-state, but we do not adopt out-of-state because we want to see the process through of that horse to make sure that we vetted out people properly. We made sure the horse got a good home. Everything's going okay, and I every person that's adopted from us, I still communicate with. They reach out and send me pictures of their grandkids riding the horses.
Aww. That's awesome.
We've built amazing relationships with people, and we're very thankful for that. And then I'll take anybody's advice. If someone says, well, I know you do it this way, but I think this way would be better. If I never tried it, I'll try it. If it works, I'll keep it. If it don't, I'll go back. Right?
Love
we're
that.
open-minded to learn from anybody. That's about it. Surrenders, transfers. There's neglected horses. You get phone calls. I went out to we do a lot, and I can get into that so that the viewers know. We have team building days. At the end of this month, we have Bank of America coming out for 2, 3, 4 hours, and they'll help clean up the property, like weeds, and they'll clean troughs, and they'll get to interact with the horses and pet the horses and stuff like that. We have children that come out. There's people come out with their kids that have special needs, and that's an amazing thing to watch. And it's crazy how much horses just know. And we have church groups that come out. And then I went last year to Peoria Police Department. It was Peoria, Surprise, and El Mirage, and I worked with their animal control units and taught them about how we assess neglect of a horse, right? Because you can show up at somebody's house and the horse is 30 years old and it's kind of underweight, and the neighbor has called livestock 10 times saying this horse isn't taken care of, but does the neighbor really know about that horse? Is it not taken care of, or is it 30 years old? And that's the only weight it can maintain. So we work with them to teach them. I've had a lot of interaction with the Fort McDowell reservation. There's some wild horses out there, and they've called me at times and asked, hey, what do we do? This happened. And we'll work with them and help them. I think every rescue has their own little niche of what they do. Ours is pretty open. We don't have any specific thing we do, but we're always there to help people and give them awareness of equine and where to get resources and the right questions answered, because we don't know them all for sure, but we can always give them a good resource that will help them and benefit them. It's just a matter of reaching out. So we do a lot. We're not opposed to anything. We've done a pancake. We had some donkeys at the rescue, and we did a pancake breakfast with the donkeys. So we cooked pancakes for people that came and visited, and they sat and ate pancakes hanging out with the donkeys.
Uh-huh.
It was just kind of cool, right?
That's
something
so
different.
cool. Sounds like so much fun and lots of education, and it sounds like an incredible organization that's going on, and it's been such an honor to have you as a guest on the show and hear about your story and more about the rescue.
I appreciate it. It's fun. It's fun. You get out of it what you want. That's what I always tell volunteers when they start. We have a 2-hour orientation. I tell them, you're going to get out of it what you want. If you want to come here and clean stalls and turn out the horses and feed them and go home, cool. That's great. If you want to spend some time and brush the horses and stuff, if you want to learn more, call me. I'll come work with you and teach you whatever you want to learn. And, learning is great. Everybody wants to learn something, but do they want to accept the process of the learning, right? So, but it's a good thing, and it does more than just rescue horses. It helps a lot of people, and that to me is something I've learned through the process of having the horse rescue, is the benefit of, we bring these horses in and we help them, but I think the horses really help people more than we help them. And if you can do that, then you're doing a good thing.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Curry. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I feel like I could talk to you a lot longer.
It's been fun, and I appreciate you guys reaching out, and I love what you do. What you do is amazing. I will definitely share your podcast, if it's okay, on our website and get people interested in listening.
Thank you.
It's always good to get different perceptions and experience, and you can learn a lot listening to
Thank you so much.
Really.
Yeah, thank you.
You're very welcome. You guys have a good day.